So we started off with developing a kind of tool to test whether off-target reactivities of virus-specific T cells, whether we can predict this. Because we know that patients that have a hematological malignancy often get a stem cell transplant from the stem cell donor, but sometimes they develop viral reactivations like CMV, EBV, or the adenovirus. And sometimes we cannot harvest virus-specific T cells from the stem cell donor. So in that case, you can think of those patients are in need of virus-specific T cells, so you can give virus-specific T cells from a third-party donor. So that's been going on for a few years now in America and in Europe as well. And we wondered if there could be, there is obviously risk involved because a third-party donor is HLA mismatched with the patient. And we try to, of course, match as much as possible for HLA between patient and third-party donor, but that's not always feasible. It's very difficult. So we try to investigate whether there are certain patterns, predictions in this off-target reactivity. So what we try to do is to test whether the virus specificity, so whether you have CMV-specific T cells, EBV, or adenovirus-specific T cells, that would influence the off-target reactivity, or that the HLA restriction that the product is specific for would influence this, or that the HLA background of a donor, so the HLA typing of a donor, would influence the off-target reactivity. And what we actually found out is that the specificity, so either the epitope specificity within a virus, so CMV, PP65, or EA1, or in general CMV, EBV, or adenovirus, doesn't really influence the off-target reactivity. So we tested this by testing these products. So we had almost 180 products that we tested in vitro against a whole big panel of mismatched B cells that were transformed by the EBV virus. And those were EBV B cells were all HLA mismatched, so we could determine whether certain patients would be recognized, yes or no. And what we observed is that the majority, that it does not influence the specificity, so there is an equal off-target reactivity in CMV, EBV, and adenovirus-specific T cells. But surprisingly, there was a huge discrepancy in when you distribute the off-target reactivity in HLA restriction. So we tested HLA A1, A2, B7, and B8 restricted T cell populations. And to our surprise, almost 80% of the HLA B8 restricted T cell populations recognized one or more of these allogeneic stimulator cell lines. And what was even more surprising is that they did not recognize one, but they recognized almost a complete panel. So many different patients with different HLA mismatchings were recognized in this panel. And the other HLA A1, A2, and B7 were roughly 30% off target, and they only recognized one or two patients. So this is something that we did not expect. That there were certain rules, and so that's very, I think, a groundbreaking result. And this is also further implications for not only the stem cell world, but also the organ transplantation field. So what we discovered is that a paper a year ago also found out that recipients that received the organ transplantation that were HLA-B8 positive were more prone to reject the organ. So that actually fits within our data. So HLA-B8 is a certain HLA molecule that is causing more off-target reactivities when you isolate in this case, virus-specific T cell population. So we all should be aware that if we transplant such a product, that you need to be aware that you try to match with the other HLA alleles of the patients as much as possible. Because what we observed is that a lot of these B cell lines were recognized, and we also confirmed this with another cell line where we transduced 40 different HLA constructs in these cell lines to determine which HLA molecules were often recognized. And what we also observed was that the B8 restricted T cell populations that were already very off-target reactive recognized the majority of HLA-B molecules. So if there is no possible matching, we suggest that at least try to match for HLA-B as much as possible. But Of course, we only tested 4, and it took us 3 years to test them all. There are so many different HLA molecules that we should be aware that these things could occur. Strikingly, we have not observed that much of off-target reactivities in vivo yet. But the thing is that in the clinic, we often only administer HLA-A2 restricted T-cell products. And these are also in our study are shown to not be that off-target reactive as the other B8 restricted T-cell population. So in the future, if we want to transplant B8 restricted T-cell population, we should be aware of this problem and maybe also with other HLA restrictions and should be tested.